welcome to the annual meeting 2022.
The Great Reset. What is the Great Reset? We keep hearing about it. We hear about it in the news. We hear about it when we turn on anything about the economy, read about it in the press. What is the World Economic Forum, and who is this guy, Klaus Schwab? Why is it that when he sets a conference high in the Alps, the leaders of the entire world go to visit him? Why?
Klaus Schwab is here. He is the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum. The organization holds conferences with global leaders all over the world, including the closely watched gathering in Davos, Switzerland, each January. Schwab created the World Economic Forum, as it's referred to, in 1971 with the mission of improving the state of the world.
We have become the official international organization for public-private cooperation.
We have business, of course, as a very important audience, and we have politics. We have continuous partnerships with many governments around the world. And of course, we have NGOs, we have trade unions, we have all those different parts.
Media, of course.
Media, of course, and very important experts and scientists and academia.
I'm Jack Posobiec. Welcome to the Great Global Reset.
The pandemic has radically changed the world as we know it, and the actions we take today as we work to recover will define our generation. With everything falling apart, we can reshape the world in ways we couldn't before, ways that better address so many of the challenges we face. And that's why so many are calling for a great reset.
In 2020, Klaus Schwab released a book called COVID-19 and the Great Reset. In that book, which took place, it was written during the lockdowns, he actually praised the lockdowns. And he pointed out that, well, there was a decrease in global emissions and there was a decrease in human activity. The lockdowns were proof of concept. They want to introduce lockdown mindset, not just in times of emergency, but they want there to be constant crisis. And they're going to use climate change, they have used climate change as part of this constant crisis. But think about it. During the COVID-19 pandemic, they got everything that the climate industry has been calling for, the climate alarmists have been calling for from day one. They got the shutdowns, they got the sustainability, they got the cars off the road, they got the people staying inside. And so they're looking at that as a test case that they want to replicate, not just from crisis to crisis, COVID-19, Omicron, Delta variant, monkeypox, no. It's not about moving from one to the other. It's about taking that as a test case and extending it for all of our lifestyles. They want the lockdowns to be closer to how we live every single day. They're putting you in Stockholm Syndrome across the entire West. And why? Why are they doing this? It's simple. Because they want to institute those lockdown policies forever.
You know, people are over COVID. The problem is it's not done with us, but we're in danger of losing this moment for transformative change.
There will be no return to the old normal for the foreseeable future. I repeat, there will be no return to the old normal for the foreseeable future.
So we're here in Geneva, Switzerland. We're at the headquarters of the WHO itself. Dr. Tedros just reelected to another 5-year term. A surprise upset, of course, for Dr. Tedros, the guy who completely mismanaged the COVID-19 response, accepted and spread the lies of the CCP. The CCP who refused to tell us about human-human transmission, who refused to tell us what was going on in the Wuhan lab, that refused to give us the full genome early on of COVID-19, and to this day refuses to tell us about the gain-of-function research that was being conducted in the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
Holding each other back or shifting blame will only cause needless delay in response and distract us from the overall objective. Of particular importance is to fully leverage vaccines as a powerful weapon, ensure the equitable distribution, quicken vaccination, and close the global immunization gap.
Why is China allowed to continue to be a member of the WHO when it seems that all they're doing is lying, denying, and obfuscating the truth about COVID-19? And I'll tell you why. It's very simple. Because the CCP has control of this building. You see 194 flags there, but there's really only one that matters, and that's the flag of the People's Republic of China.
The Chinese government is to be congratulated for the extraordinary measures it has taken to contain the outbreak. In many ways, China is actually setting a new standard for outbreak.
So inside right now, the representatives of the 194 nations of the World Health Organization are meeting. They are discussing this new plan for a pandemic treaty which will give the power to declare lockdowns, to declare pandemics, to declare all of this to the WHO. They will be taking away from the sovereign power of the leaders of the nations of 194 countries and giving it to the people inside here and the people inside that headquarters just down the road.
The World Health Organization is being weaponized by the globalist elite to shut down not only our nation, but the world's economy. Nation after nation implementing shutdowns based on the fear instilled by the World Health Organization. This helps these institutions gain levels of power that they have never had before. As George Orwell once said, we know that no one ever seizes power with the intention of relinquishing it. Power is not a means, it is an end. These international health regulations help break the world as we know it, and they only serve the goals of the World Economic Forum and its conductor, Klaus Schwab.
The 1970s saw intensified cooperation amongst leaders and significant personals from the countries of Europe, America, and Japan. This cooperation, instigated by David Rockefeller, an American banker, culminated into what was known as the Trilateral Commission, founded in 1973. The commission members included everyone from the United States Secretary of Defense to the CEOs of the largest media houses of the participating nations. An international relations textbook would define world order as the distribution of power among world powers. This redistribution of power would be inevitable with the current globalist scenario. The rise of artificial intelligence, China's economic growth, increasing decline of situations in the Middle East, global shift towards the right wing, and data scandals plunging us into cyber warfare brings us the need to evaluate a new world order.
In 1973, the Trilateral Commission was founded by David Rockefeller. He wanted to bring leaders in business from across the world together to start to solve the world's problems. And it was really the first rumblings of the World Economic Forum and what we see today. This partnership eventually allowed China to rise up because they brought China into global business. And now we are all aware of the collusion between the World Health Organization and Communist China, and even America's politicians and journalists.
So when you read Klaus Schwab's writing, he lays out that there are three objectives for the Great Reset. He says it's stakeholder capitalism, ESG, and then the fourth industrial revolution.
Political, economic, social, and ecological dimensions of every issue today are intertwined. We act all as stakeholders of larger communities, so that we serve not our only self-interests, but we serve the community. That's what we call stakeholder responsibility.
Capitalism, as we know it, is dead. This obsession that we have had with maximizing profits for shareholders alone has led to incredible inequality and a planetary emergency, and we all owe a debt of gratitude to Klaus Schwab and his team.
Everything we've learned in our work has shown us that diverse voices lead to better results. And it's for these reasons that the forum talks about something called stakeholder capitalism.
So with stakeholder capitalism, this idea that the global supply chain will be instituted and that borders will fall, borders will be erased, culture will be erased, and that you just become a commodity. That's stakeholder capitalism. And of course they'll use language like saying it's it's for sustainability and it's for the environment and it's for equity and so it's for diversity and all these these different wonderful philosophical quasi-spiritual secularist terms, but at the end of the day that's really all it is. It's this idea that they are going to transform our economy but also transform our way of life. And so that gets you to ESG. So what's ESG? It breaks down, it's just an acronym, environmental social governance. But the idea is they're now ranking companies and countries based on their adherence to stakeholder capitalism.
BlackRock believes that investments that consider E, S, and G metrics can help you pursue long-term success of your portfolio and contribute to a more sustainable world.
You can get more access to financialization through these firms, these money market firms, by having a higher ESG score.
Today we manage $8.5 trillion.
I hope people realize that that's quite that countries do not have that.
No, but none of it is our money. Not a penny of it is our money.
So in this model, BlackRock becomes the operations arm of the Great Reset. And that's so every company out there in the world, if you want to up your stock price, if you want to up your ability to go to market, to get access to those pools of capital, you have to pass through this new gate. And you have to pass through this new gate of ESG, which means you have to structure your board, your employees, your workforce, your buildings, your chain completely to fit this model in order to gain access to more capital. Elon Musk even talked about this recently because he noted that Tesla was given a bad ESG score. And he pointed out, we're the green car company. That's all we do at Tesla is build green cars. We're the ones that are actually trying to move the ball forward in terms of this technology for the entire world. And yet even Elon Musk is getting low ESG scores because they don't think that he's playing ball enough with ESG. That's how much control they have now. And by the way, for the countries, China, India, of course they're getting great scores. Why? Because they're still considered developing nations. And that's why the same environmental goals, the same climate goals, the same carbon goals don't get applied to them. And of course that's what they claim it is, but the entire thing at the end of the day is still a scam.
The Biden White House, right behind me, this regime, their number one source of economic advisors is from BlackRock. Brian Deese, who is the head of Biden's National Economic Advisory Council, is directly from BlackRock. He was the head of their sustainable investment. They're coming directly into the governments of the world, whether it's here, whether it's Trudeau up in Canada, whether it's the Netherlands and the Dutch farmers. And so the question to all of you is, do we want to keep the government that we have, or do we want to go back to the government that we were promised? The government of three branches, not an unelected fourth branch that combines academia, the bureaucracy, the permanent state, and the financial enterprises of Wall Street. It's a simple question. I have to answer it.
The ESG philosophy claims that it wants to help the environment, but what they really mean by this is that they have the only solution to climate issues, and to them, the solution is for them to own everything, including private residences and agriculture.
Gary Berman is CEO of Tricon Residential, a Toronto-based company that has quietly become one of the largest owners of single-family homes in the United States.
So today, we own about 30,000 single-family rental homes across the U.S., largely in the Sun Belt, and we've got probably about 75,000 people living in our homes.
Tricon is trying to buy 800 houses a month, and there are companies even bigger. Some of the all-stars of finance, Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, Blackstone, have put hundreds of millions of dollars into these companies.
Tricon, a firm owned by Blackstone, is buying up homes in the United States and Canada. And what they're doing, and other similar corporations, is outbidding American and Canadian homeowners, forcing us to have to rent instead of own our own homes. Bill Gates, a famous advocate for the World Economic Forum's agenda and of sustainability, owns over 250,000 acres.
What's called artificial meat. And so you have people like Impossible or Beyond Meat, both of which I invested in.
You eat it as well, and you like it?
Absolutely.
You do.
You can go to Burger King and buy the Impossible Burger.
All right. Is it healthier for you or just healthier for the atmosphere?
It's slightly healthier for you in terms of less cholesterol. It's, of course, dramatic reduction in methane emissions, animal cruelty, manure management, and the pressure that meat consumption puts on land use.
If you were starting from scratch, figuring out a way to deliver protein to human beings, you wouldn't use an animal. Science would tell you to do something different.
51% of climate change emissions can be attributed to livestock.
So we see a system like that and we say, this is just absurd. So how do you take a variety of plant-based components out there in the world, bring them together, and replicate this miracle of nature?
Bill Gates has bought in 18 states in America so far. And when you combine this with the purchases from the companies backed by BlackRock and Blackstone, you're able to see how easy it is for elites to outbid Americans and cause a surge in prices across the country. That rising cost makes it nearly impossible for first-time buyers.
Holland is pretty crowded. Our land is quite expensive. Labor is expensive. So we have to be as efficient as possible. We have to be more efficient than others to compete. And that competition drives innovation and technology.
Dutch farmers have been protesting for weeks, incensed by new environmental targets set by their government. They're vehemently opposing the measures which aim to halve nitrogen emissions by 2030. The new policy could mean farms like this one will have to shut down, prompting many to take action.
So, Henry Kissinger once said that if you control the food, you control a nation. If you control the energy, you can control the region. And if you control the money, you control the world. We've been witnessing food shortages across the world because of failed leadership for the most part, because of bad politicians. We're also seeing energy shortages that are caused by the radical left's insane environmental policies. We wouldn't be facing these problems if it wasn't for their radical agendas. And then they claim the impact of their radical agenda is the reason why we need to give them more power. And now we're seeing the combination of international corporations, of business forces, financial institutions, working together to control the money spread around the world. And that's really the last thing, like Kissinger said, that is needed to have global control.
It's really the notion of digital technology pervasively impacting every walk of life in every vertical industry on all parts of the globe.
You can hack my body and my brain and my life, and you can understand me better than I understand myself. You can know my personality type, my political views, my sexual preferences, my mental weaknesses, my deepest fears and hopes. You know more about me than I know about myself. And you can do that not just to me, but to everyone.
The difference of this fourth industrial revolution is it doesn't change what you are doing. It changes you. If you take genetic editing, just as an example, it's you who are changed. And of course, this has a big impact on your identity.
So a lot of people these days that are into technology, they're thrilled to see that we're entering this fourth industrial revolution. But I swear, I feel chills down my spine when I see that the West is trying to adopt the practices of places like communist China, using technology to track every movement of people. And now we're even seeing these titans in the tech industry talk about being able to manipulate, not only guess, but to manipulate the thought and the choices that we are making in our own minds. And it's something that we're going to have to face as a generation of leaders.
You will own nothing, and you'll be happy. Whatever you want, you'll rent, and it'll be delivered by drone. The US won't be the world's leading superpower. A handful of countries will dominate. You won't die waiting for an organ donor. We won't transplant organs, we'll print new ones instead. You'll eat much less meat. An occasional treat, not a staple, for the good of the environment and our health.
People in their 20s and 30s today have less wealth than any other of the preceding generations in modern history. Understand, that hasn't been done by accident. That's been done by design. They want you preconditioned and completely and utterly demoralized.
What we are very proud of now is the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina and so on, is that we penetrate the cabinets. I know that half of this cabinet, or even more half of this cabinet, are actually young global leaders of the World Economic Forum. This Merkel, even Vladimir Putin and so on, they all have been young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
They are out to gain control of all institutions in our nation and every other nation. It's important that we understand these connections. It's important that we understand the history, the decades leading up to the moment that we're in now. Private industries working in tandem with global political leaders. It's something we've never, ever seen before.
Government policies, corporate strategies. We know that all those challenges cannot be met by governments alone, by business alone, or by civil society alone. We need collaborative efforts. The future is not just happening. The future is built by us, by a powerful community as you here in this room. We have the means to improve the states of the world.
If you have total government control over industry, what is that? Well, that is the textbook definition of fascism.
Thank you. The only answer to a great reset is a great awakening. That is what we're going to have here. So I have to thank Charlie Kirk and Turning Point and everybody who was involved with this. By the way, the editor, I can't see, actually the lights are actually pretty bright out here, but the guys who put this all together are here in the room with us. Marcus and the guys, where are you guys at? They're somewhere around here. Oh, they're there. They're all the guys, right. Marcus, Ken, Ren, there they are. Those are the guys who need the applause. Now, I'm just the guy, they stick in front of the camera. And you don't see it yet in this first episode, but you do see it in the trailer, that it was myself and these three characters over here that Klaus Schwab sent his goon squad after when we were in Davos. You all saw that video, right? Not because of what we were doing, but because of who we are and what we had to say. They were terrified of what we were doing. Yes. Because they understand that there's real power. There's real power, and the only thing that we're doing is taking their words, repeating it back to them, but unpacking it and explaining the truth behind it. So every single one of us, the four of us, we were detained, we were frisked, front and the back, no dinner, no lunch beforehand. No. I did have my undertax on, don't worry. But then they said, show us the footage. We want to see what you are filming. We want to see your cameras. And then they were about to show it. And I remember this. I think they're Ken. They wanted to take you away, right? Right. They wanted to take Ken over, and they said, "Come see. We have a nice van over here. Just come step inside the van and we can watch your footage together." I said, he's not going anywhere. None of us are going anywhere. You're not separating us. We're not playing any of these games. No. Because what they sent out, MP5s, 9mm, quick response force of fully armed individuals. It said World Economic Forum Police. And on their patches, World Economic Forum Police. And so I tweet out, I believe we've been detained by the World Economic Forum Police. Then we get an article from Reuters as we're sitting there, because the whole thing's going on for about an hour. And I said, oh, of course, surely the media, of all things, they're going to say, okay, we're going to come in. And I know Reuters doesn't like me and CNN and probably don't like any of the speakers in this room, by the way. And you know what? I wear that as a badge of honor. I really do. But the Reuters piece comes out and it says, fact check, Jack Posobiec was not detained by the World Economic Forum Police. And I'm sitting there going, what, was that like a gang? Was this like is Ashton Kutcher going to pop out and with the, the old TV show? And they said, actually, those police are, I can't even get this. Those police are assigned to the World Economic Forum rather than actually being the World Economic Forum police. You see, it's completely different. These are and then if you go down to the very bottom of the Reuters piece, what does it say? That Reuters has signed an exclusive agreement with who? The World Economic Forum. So you understand, that's the protection. This isn't a partnership, it's a racket, it's a cabal. But I'll tell you something else. We have something far more powerful. They have the billionaires, they have the trillionaires, they have multinational corporations, they have the army of the CCP. Well, we've got the army of the awakened. And you know who we have on our side? We have God on our side. And no weapon formed against him shall prevail. None. Understand this, because they do not want, and I would add, I'm not gonna disagree with what Charlie said at the beginning of this, but I would add something. It's not just that they're trying to tear away God. They want to replace God. They want to replace God with themselves. That's what we are Homo sapiens. They want to replace it with Homo Deus. That is why it's so important to understand what Joe Allen is talking about with the transhumanism. Stephen K. Bannon, of course, talks about this a lot. And by the way, I'm going to say something that Steve didn't say last night, because I know he gave an excellent keynote address. Do you know that this is the very first event publicly that Steve Bannon has done since what they did to him in New York City? And I'll tell you something, they'll do it to every single one of us. Well, let me ask you something. Are you going to stand down? Are you going to go away? Are you going to shut up and do what you're told? Or are you going to fight to take your country back? We're going to take our schools back. We're going to take our churches back. We're going to take it state by state, street by street, block by block. And I'll tell you something. Thank you. And we just had the opportunity through Turning Point to visit the Holy Land. So I flew back directly from Israel to this event, and I was there with my family, and I was there with my father, my mother, my children, my wife, my beautiful Tanya Tay. Don't worry, sweetheart, I mentioned you. And by the way, Steve told me, he said, look, Posobiec, I'm only watching the movie if Tanya's in it, all right? I'm not sitting there watching you. That's only episode, by the way, so just so you understand, that's episode 1. So the rest of this, it's going to be released through tposa.com. We're working on some more distribution deals, but that's a little, what did you think? What did you think? And like I said, if you have any problems with it, the guys that take it up with are over there. It's all their fault. No, but so we put the whole thing together. We've got Tanya Tay, and we got to the Holy Land, and being able to walk. Has anyone gone there in the room? I could just see some hands. A few. That's amazing. We actually walked the Via Dolorosa, and the Via Dolorosa is the Latin translation of the way of suffering. This is the true stations of the cross, the actual stations that the Messiah, Christ Jesus, walked in. And I was able to walk those with my parents, with my children. They're only 1 and 4, so I think maybe when they're a little bit older, they'll appreciate it more. But when we got to the end, and we actually made it to the 13th station, which is the slab, right? This is the slab where they laid his body. And my dad, he's kind of from that generation where you don't really show your feelings, He's, you're tough, right? You got to be tough. You don't go to the doctor. You don't, mess around. You don't show your feelings. You don't. But my dad, after walking, if you've walked the Via Dolorosa, by the way, I love the movie Passion of the Christ. We watch it every Easter. But I do have one bone to pick with it. That road ain't flat. That is like straight up road. It is, and imagine carrying that as you've been beaten with a cat o' nine tails. You've got a crown of thorns on your head, and you're carrying this massive cross. Of course he fell. I'm surprised he only fell 3 times. Right? I was carrying my son up there, and he's getting a little bigger. My father got to that slab, and he fell down to his knees. He put his hands on it, and he was weeping. And I couldn't even look at him. Do you honestly think that Klaus Schwab and these programs and these agendas can ever compete with that? With true belief in the risen Christ, true belief in faith in something greater than us, belief in God, belief in an understanding that we're not just some DNA code, that we're not just some kind of immaterial, crude substance. No, we have souls. We are created beings in the likeness of that Creator. And we're not going to let Klaus Schwab or anybody else tell us otherwise. You're not going to come to me and tell me that my children are, just a bunch of atoms and chemical responses and synapses in the brain. Sure, they have all those things, but that is not what makes them who they are. They are immutable, individual human spirits that we have to nurture and we have to create. And that is the one thing that they are trying to destroy. Because if you can believe that a human being is just another piece of matter, then they've already won. They've already won. If you can get them to believe that a human life, this is what the CCP believes, by the way, and I lived there. I lived in China for 2 years prior to joining the U.S. military. Any veterans? Any veterans in the audience? By the way, if we can we have the veterans stand up? Can we do that? How about a round of applause for our veterans? I don't know if we haven't done that yet. And I agree with everything that Pedro had to say about, by the way, that if you're going to take someone who, when you sign up to join the United States military, that's a blank check to your country, right? A blank check that's deliverable up to and including you know what. And so if we're going to do that, that's the most sacred obligation and sacred duty that we have to those people, that we're not going to send you out there to go run some and I'm just going to say it, some halfway thought through, half-baked evacuation operation at the Abbey Gate, when you're letting people walk up to you with the 13 honored dead that we had there at that evacuation, that didn't have to happen. It didn't have to be that way. But Joe Biden and this government set it up that way. The same way that they'll set up the human suffering, not only of our soldiers, but the human suffering that's going on our border, the sex trafficking that's going on, the sex slavery of women and children that's going on our border every single day. And then they'll have the audacity to say, oh, we can't even have them up in Martha's Vineyard. Please, please. Okay, and I look at that situation and I say, I'm glad that Ron DeSantis did that. I really am glad that he did that. Yes, yes. But what I want to see next now, and I'm making sure we're on the side of this, I want to see real policy change across this country because, and I'm going to tie it back to Israel now, because when we were in Israel, we went to the Golan Heights. Now, the Golan Heights, this is a disputed area. So in 1967, Israel launches Six-Day War, and Israel essentially takes that land. And you have to understand, this is this massive mountain right at the tip, the northern tip of Israel, and it crosses in. It was Syrian territory, but it straddles the border between Israel, Syria, and Lebanon, but it's higher above. So if you're Hamas, you're Hezbollah, if you're anybody that you're launching rockets in, you're launching missiles in, you've got to go through the Golan Heights. Well, if you take those heights, you got the high ground, right? Israel is a country that takes its borders seriously. They take their nationhood seriously. And let me explain the underpinnings of the Great Reset. Now, of course, and Charlie would say, Jack, plug the book. All right, yeah. So we do have the booklet out on this. And if you go to reset.tposa.com, I hope that everyone here in this room has a copy of it. If you don't yet, or if you're watching at home, just go to the website, reset.tposa.com, 50-page booklet. Any amount donation gets you the booklet, and it breaks down all of this. Because here's what they're trying to do. The Great Reset, and we promised you that this is not a conference just about the Great Reset, it's about defeating the Great Reset. And we're going to have the docu-series up that's going to explain it chapter and verse. And we go through Klaus Schwab's book, just like we did, and the great Morgan Zeggers, who's in the film as well, goes through this. But what we're doing now is we're talking about how do you take that next step, and that's why the booklet's important. But I'm going to talk about there's two key issues that underpin this entire thing. There's two key issues. And I think that if there's any MAGA Americans, if there's any MAGA American First Americans out there, they'll understand exactly what they are. This is open trade and open borders. That all of the Great Reset, all of the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, all of this, where do they get their money from, their financial capital, their wealth? Where does it come from? It comes propped up by this globalist, corrupt globalist system. Can't even get it out. The corrupt globalist system that's propped up by open borders and open trade. And if you understand that the two key issues that we need to turn on their head to stop this entire thing in its tracks, it's so simple. Trade and immigration. Trade and immigration. And if you notice, between the two sides in this country, the liberals and the conservatives, it seems that when you're talking to liberal and conservative leaders, it almost seems like they're in complete lockstep on both of these. Doesn't it seem that way? It's almost like we've got a uniparty in this country, like we've got a global transnational elite that's in bed with the CCP, by the way, on this. You want to know why your 23andMe is so cheap? That's because it's being subsidized by their investment partner, WuXi, that's collecting all of your data for their genome project on the back end. They're building towards this. The CCP doesn't have the guardrails that we do. They don't have the ethics that we do, and they are pushing forward with all of it. So let me tell you something. You fix those two issues, trade and immigration, and suddenly you have your nation back. Because those are the two key issues that only a nation can control. Think of it. You take away your borders, you take away trade, no more nation, right? No more nation. When Israel came back, when they went back on the map in 1948 and when they fought to secure their independence in 1967, that's exactly what it came down to, trade and immigration. would they control? And they understood that if they didn't have strong borders, if they didn't determine who could or couldn't be in their country, and of course there's been, I'm not going to get into the whole history and the litany of all the agreements and disagreements that they've had there. But my point is, they knew that these are the two key issues to securing nationhood. And so my question is then, why is it that you can go and say, I'm for Israel's sovereignty, I'm for Ukraine's sovereignty, but if you say that for the United States of America, you get labeled a racist, a xenophobe, tinfoil. No, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of apologizing for standing up for my country. I'm sick of apologizing for standing up for my way of life. I'm sick of apologizing for our civilization. I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm done. I'm not apologizing for that anymore. And I don't think anyone here should either. But I'm not playing their game, because the minute you start apologizing, you start explaining, you start playing these games. Well, what about this? What about that? No. We have the ability to determine who we want in our country or not. We have the ability to determine which countries that we have trade with, and the ability to determine the details, the parameters of that trade. And if we're going to go in with the CCP, and look, I was there, okay? Speak Mandarin. The money that flows through Shanghai, that flows through Guangzhou, Hong Kong, it's immeasurable. It's absolutely immeasurable. And to understand that the people that are drinking and feeding from this trough, it's not the middle class. It's not the Lao Beijing in China. It's not the poors. No. It's the people at the top. It's the 1%. They're making money and they know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. They know about the Uyghurs. They know about the camps. They know about the Christian churches. They know about the organ experiments and the harvesting that's done in the Falun Gong and the dissidents. They don't care. They turn a blind eye. And I'll tell you another thing. They go and look at places like Youngstown, Ohio. They go and look at places like Detroit, Michigan. They go and look at places like the entire center and west of my beloved home state of Pennsylvania. And they've seen how it's completely hollowed out, and they don't care, because you know where that capital went? That capital all went to the People's Republic of China. There's no such thing as the China model, okay? It's a sham. It's a hoax. It's always been a scam. And the scam is this. The partnership that they put together in globalism, the global supply chain, is simple. China gets the financial capital of the West, and that's going to underpin the entire system. Then they make the goods. They become the global manufacturing center. The people of the West, you get to become consumers. You're free-range cattle to them. They want you calm. They want you subservient. They want you quiet. They want you sitting there flicking on Netflix, seeing what there's a new Star Wars movie coming out. There's a new Lord of the Rings coming out. I'm going to go watch that while I order my instant gratification special from Amazon, from Uber Eats, from Tinder, whatever it is. Whatever it is you want, you can order with the flick of your finger on a piece of glass in your pocket. Okay? That's not living. That's not real life. That's not being a sovereign individual who's taking ownership of your own life. And I don't think any of the people in this room, you wouldn't be here spending the entire day on a Saturday. All right, it's a beautiful day outside, by the way, in Phoenix. But you wouldn't be here if you didn't care about that. You're here because you care about your families, you care about your children, you care about your grandchildren, that you're going to go home, and I know that I'm going to go home, and I'm going to see my kids. And I'm going to say, I'm not doing this for me. I'm not doing this. Look, we're not doing this and fighting up against odds that are. Steve Bannon's getting perp-walked. Mike Lindell's getting his phone taken away. And let's not even talk about what they're doing to President Trump. Okay, we've seen it. It would be so much easier to take, you guys have seen, Dune, that you put your finger in the pain box, right? And that's what they're trying to do to all of us. They're putting you in the pain box because they want you to feel that. They want you to go out there and say, oh, if you got one of those red hats on, oof, you're just a bad person. You're a bad member of society. And you hear the absolute hatred in that speech from President Biden at our Independence Hall. the way he desecrated Independence Hall, the sacred ground where our Declaration was signed, where our Constitution was fought over, was formed, where our country was born. He went there and he desecrated it. And let me tell you something. You don't think they did that on purpose? They absolutely did that on purpose. They inverted it on its head. Well, let me tell you something. I look around at this room, and I've seen the numbers on the live stream. So for all the people in this room and for the millions watching back home, let me tell you something. We are taking our country back. It starts now. We are the American people. The country that was given to us, the lifeblood that's been handed to us, we are the stewards of this country. We are the stewards of our civilization. What is Western civilization? I'll give it to you in 3 key points. Greek philosophy, Roman law, and the words of the Holy Bible. That's Western civilization. That was given to us, and we're going to fight together. We are going to fight together, and we're not going to give up. Let me hear something. Do you guys want to give up? No. Are you guys done? No. Are you tired? No. Are you sick? No. I'll tell you one thing. I am a little sick. Are you ready to take back your country? Are you ready to take back the schools? Are you ready to take back our children's future? Then, ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to rise up right now, and there's a little chant. I think we could get going to end it off. It's very quick. You might hear it. It's 3 words. It goes like, not even 3 words. I'm going to strike that. 3 letters. It goes like this. USA, 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 USA. You like that, Klaus Schwab? Put that in your pipe and smoke it. God bless you, everyone.